All praise to God, for he is worthy to be praised. I'm Mo, and welcome back to Mo Conscious. First off, I want to thank my subscribers for subscribing to my channel and showing me this support. With this support, I can reach a broader audience throughout the YouTube space. Now is a critical juncture in America for somebody to speak out against these issues. America could truly be a great place for everybody. It truly could be for everyone. However, it won't be until we eradicate this racism. Until racism's eradicated, we all going to suffer together, guys. With that being said, let's jump into this video.
A high school baseball player out in Stillwater, Oklahoma, just accepted a deal that means he won't spend any time in prison after pleading no contest to some of the most heinous charges there are. Charges like rape, forced oral sodomy, assault and battery by strangulation. According to graphic arrest affidavits that were filed in Payne County, Oklahoma court, then 17-year-old Jessie Butler targeted at least 2 teen girls that he dated. And many of these accusations, they are right out of a horror movie, okay? So now, before we dig into this, before we dig deeper into these affidavits, I got to tell you a little bit more about Butler, who turned 18 in August. So he attended Stillwater Public Schools, played for the high school baseball teams and other regional outfits. This is according to reporting from the Daily Mail. Stillwater is the home of Oklahoma State University, and Butler, by the way, comes from an influential sports family. The Daily Mail reports that his father, Mac Butler, was the OSU football team's director of operations from 2001 to 2004, and then again in 2009 until 2021. He was then hired as the assistant athletics director for Stillwater Public Schools. Butler's mother, Jackie Butler, is a coordinator for Cowboy sports properties at OSU. This is again according to the Daily Mail. Family members of Butler's victims described him as seemingly like, quote, the perfect boyfriend when he dated their 16-year-old daughters. But these affidavits, they reveal that behind closed doors, Butler was essentially a violent predator who refused to be told no. According to the first affidavit, a 16-year-old identified by her initials LS told a school resource officer in September of 2024 that she had dated Jessie Butler for a few months earlier in the year, and that during that time, he physically and sexually assaulted her multiple times, including trying to rape her inside his car outside of an ice cream shop the previous February. The affidavit reads, LS reported she yelled and told him no repeatedly and tried to push him off of her, but was unable to overpower him. LS reported Butler told her he was sorry for what he had to do, but he had to do it. LS recalled hyperventilating because Butler intended to have sexual intercourse with her and she did not want to. Now, according to LS, a woman must have heard her screaming because she walked up to the car and interrupted them. LS told police that Butler told her that if the police came, they would both be in trouble. He reportedly took her back to his home where her car was parked and then tried to rape her again. The affidavit says LS told Butler she needed to get home, but Butler pulled her on top of him and told her, "You're not going until I'm finished." LS said she was eventually able to get out of the car and get home. Now, the victim told police that Butler forced her to perform oral sex on him in the parking lot of a Planet Fitness despite her saying no. And unbelievably, during the assault, the affidavit says that Butler took a call from his mom, told LS she had to be silent or he would hurt her. There's another assault that happened at Butler's home in what's referred to as a movie room. According to LS, she believes Butler's mom heard her crying and saying no as Butler tried to have sex with her. And she apparently came to the door asking if everything was okay. But it seems that's as far as this mom's interaction went, because the affidavit just says that Butler drove LS home at that point. Except he didn't take her all the way home. No, he apparently parked nearby, tried to sexually assault her for nearly 2 hours. The affidavit says that when she finally managed to get to her house, he followed her and continued trying to assault her inside of the home. And the abuse just kept getting worse because, according to LS, in late February of 2024, Butler reportedly strangled her because she refused to have sex with him. So the affidavit says, quote, LS reported she was hyperventilating and then recalled her vision being blurry and she was dizzy. She reported her head immediately hurt and she was confused about what occurred. She was scared of Butler, but when she regained consciousness, Butler was laughing at her. Following this incident, LS reported she had a handprint and injury on her neck. Now, LS was examined by a sexual assault specialist, confirmed the teen had been a victim of sexual and physical abuse. This is according to the affidavit.
Okay, I just want to cut him off right there. As we see, this is the white privilege the white male has in America. He seems to be a young white male, 17 they said, and he comes from an affluent family that has money, that has influence on things in America. And this is the depraved mindset that these individuals have. We all know that SA is a crime that mostly white males commit. And, and this just goes to show you how they are in America, how racism is in America, because we know this guy's going to get off scot-free with a slap on the wrist. But let's continue.
So Butler and LS, they apparently broke up in March of 2024. He started dating KS, and his disturbing and aggressive behavior, that allegedly continued. You have a second affidavit that details assaults that KS says she suffered during this relationship. Quote, KS reported she engaged in sexual intercourse with Jessie Butler throughout the term of their relationship and did so to prevent physical aggression from him. When KS told Butler he was hurting her, he did not care and would not stop. Because of his aggressiveness, she was scared to tell him to stop. She expressed she was scared not to do what he wanted because of how physically violent he had been with her. KS reported Butler had left bruises on her hips from squeezing her so tightly. KS reported the intercourse was extremely aggressive, but she reported she quickly stopped fighting it because Butler would overpower her and hurt her to get his way. KS explained she learned what to do and not to do to avoid being hurt by Butler. According to KS, Butler would pin her down and she was physically unable to get him off of her. KS stated this would often lead her to hyperventilate, which Butler thought was funny. So not only is it horrific, but you're seeing how these accounts are very similar to one another. Now, according to this affidavit, Butler also strangled KS, and so bad, so long, that she eventually passed out. She reported she woke up on the floor of the living room in a house where she was apparently house sitting, and she claims Butler was livid that she wouldn't have sex with him in someone else's home. But after strangling her, KS claims Butler raped her 3 or 4 times. Later that same week, KS reported that Butler strangled her again. And if it's possible to even believe this, it was an even sicker power play. The affidavit says KS stated Butler told her he wanted to strangle her so he could film it on his phone. And if you can believe it, police found that video on Butler's phone, which showed him choking KS.
Now, how sick and twisted is that?
Until she passed out. So Jessie Butler was charged in March of 2025 as an adult with 10 felony counts. We are talking rape. We are talking attempted rape, sexual battery, assault. He was later hit with an 11th charge when he apparently violated a protective order. He was facing almost 80 years in prison for these crimes. He ended up entering into a no contest plea, okay? This is where everything changes. This is where the big shock comes when he entered that plea in August. His case had apparently been downgraded from adult court to youthful offender status. And because of that, he would spend no time behind bars. So instead of his 78-year prison sentence, that was deferred. It's deferred as long as he complies with his, quote, rehabilitation plan. According to News Nation, until his 19th birthday, Butler has to do these daily check-ins, these weekly counseling sessions. He has a curfew. He isn't allowed to be on social media. He has to complete 150 hours of community service. And if he does that, no prison time. The district attorney's office released this statement.
And I just want to stop it there again because, again, he's the complexion for the protection. It's sick. This is horrible. Like, if this was a black person, a young black male who did this, then they would throw him under the jail. We all know this, but again, this is the racism in America.
Per the Daily Mail, the youthful offender sentence imposed against Jessie Butler requires him to complete his rehabilitation plan successfully, including an aggressive schedule of therapy with a specialist in sex offender treatment, and should he fail, he faces reclassification as an adult and a sentence of 10 years in prison. There are calls for the judge who approved this plea deal, Special Judge Susan Worthington, to be reprimanded, to be removed for okaying this. And even the state's legislature could possibly be getting involved here. Oklahoma State Representative Justin J.J. Humphrey appeared on Ashley Banfield's show on News Nation this week, and he is fired up.
But I keep coming back to how it happened. Sir, do you think that the courts are corrupt? Is that how you think that this deal was maneuvered?
Oh, absolutely. We're working on grand juries right there. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think we're going to see more cases like this. I think we're going to see, I'm working on a case that may be as shocking as this. We're trying to get the Payne County grand jury because of this kind of action. And so, yes, I mean, absolutely, there's a lot of problems. We're meeting with, great resistance from their court and from our Oklahoma government. I mean, we're meeting with great resistance on trying to get that grand jury and hold these people accountable. So again, until they're held accountable, the laws are there, but what do you do when they don't follow their own rules, when they don't follow justice? They took an oath to justice. Does this sound like justice? And again, here's what I'm saying. Shouldn't we investigate? Should we not investigate? Was there political favor done here? Was this done as a result because of positions the father has or because people knew each other? I would think that it would warrant investigation. And again, it's all allegations. We don't know what happened until we go in and investigate it. But golly, I'm mad as all get out. And we're trying to have other things there in that same county investigated. I mean, very, very corrupt things going on in this county and really across the state. There's all kinds of things.
So I want to bring in Justin Shepard.
The corruption throughout America really is throughout America. It's not just through your state. We all know the justice system is corrupt, especially when it comes to black and brown people. We all know that. But the only reason these people are really upset is because a white girl, a young white girl, two white girls were victims here. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it confused here. We all know what this is really about. But let's jump back into it.
Host of Just in the Nick of Crime. So happy to have you on here to talk about this. You've been following this case closely. You helped shine a national spotlight on this. How did you first hear about this case?
So actually a friend of mine, another mutual social media creator, he goes by Missing in USA. Literally his content is all, for the most part, missing people and stories, and they work behind the scenes and actually research this stuff. He lives in Stillwater, and he sent me this story, and that night I was actually getting ready to go live on YouTube to talk about three different cases. And I was like, after I read that story, I was so enraged that I was like, I'm going to scrap what I'm talking about right now because these cases have been, cold for years. And we're going to talk about this. And I was infuriated. I called a friend of mine who's an attorney. I was like, hey, can you hop on right now? Because I want to talk to you about some stuff, ask some questions. So she did as well. And then from there, apparently I opened the floodgates in Stillwater, Oklahoma. From there, I got it sent over to the people over on News Nation. It's like, hey, you guys might want to talk about this. But basically, Dan had initially sent me that story and was like, something needs to be done about this. But when you see somebody getting charged with the charges that he had, and we can get into those a little bit more here in a moment, but originally being sentenced to 78 years and then walking away with 150 hours of community service, that is just a miscarriage of justice. There's just no other way to look at it.
I haven't seen.
That's what you call white privilege.
In anything like this, anything near this, and from your research, from speaking with experts, from speaking with attorneys, what's the rationale here? What have you learned here about how this is even possible? Because I will tell you, there is a lot of speculation online right now that the Butler family may have connections that may have helped him get this so-called sweetheart deal. We couldn't confirm that. What can you tell us?
So I've spoken with some of the families as well of both victims who came forward against Jessie. There is a third victim who, if she hasn't come forward, but can you blame her when you look at this as the justice that they get? So there's a third victim. And kind of like you said, the speculation is that Jessie Mac Butler's father is a man by the name of Mac Butler. And he was the head of football operations at OSU for, I forget how many years, but for a pretty long time. He's, kind of a staple in that community. And when we're talking about Stillwater, Oklahoma, we're talking about OSU, for people who don't know, Stillwater is the town that Oklahoma State University is in. So there's a lot of things tied to that. Mac Butler, it seems that he grew up there. His wife currently works for OSU. His daughter works for the public school system there. He was apparently had been hired as like a coach of some kind for Stillwater High School as well. So somebody with deep-rooted ties into the community, and that then leads you to the judge in this case, or one of the judges in this case, Judge Susan Worthington. Between her and her father, the Worthingtons have had a hold on that bench for over 50 years. So while you can't necessarily say definitively that, hey, there's this connection here because he's deep-rooted in football, she's a judge, they all grew up in the same town, that there's this kind of connection, but it's not really many difficult mental gymnastics to make that leap, right? That, hey, this is a town that requires the college, needs the college to survive.
Let's call it what it is. It's about money. We all know it's about money. America is built off greed. That's another problem in America. It's all about the money. We know that.
It's very deep rooted into the system, that they're very much supportive of OSU for this whole kind of thing to be very close knit, and that's kind of what's being speculated, to the point that even it's now gotten the attention of one of Oklahoma's lawmakers, Representative J.J. Humphrey, who's also running for lieutenant governor. I'm actually going to be speaking with him later tonight, a little bit more details. But
yeah, and if you can, I don't know if you've spoken with him already, but Representative Humphrey is talking. My understanding is about a potential investigation into this. Is this true? Is there going to be a formal investigation into what happened here?
It sounds that way, yeah. He kind of looks at it from the same way. He was telling me that he's got a lot of background, in the court system and investigation before he got into politics. And he said, basically kind of the same thing that we were just talking about, that can he say definitively, or can he prove right now that there's a connection? No, but his exact words, but it sure as hell smacks like it, And so he's like, it's worth an investigation. So he's thinking about, wanting to put a grand jury together to do an indictment possibly, the conversation we had, which we'll go a little bit more in depth in, I don't know if that could bring additional charges against Jessie, because when you look again at the litany of charges, there are some that should have been on there that weren't. Like, in my opinion, as not a lawyer, why he wasn't charged with attempted murder when one of the girls was near death for what he did. And so those are kind of the conversations. But he feels that not just Stillwater, that entire county, Payne County, and then other places in Oklahoma, there's a lot of, he said it flat out, there's corruption, and he believes that this is no different than that. And it merits an investigation.
What is the community saying? What is the community feeling about this? Are they up in arms about it?
Yeah, they are. So there's a protest they're planning sometime next month, I think November 5th. But they're planning a protest, but they don't think that it's fair. And what's been very interesting about this is that since, like I said at the beginning, I opened the floodgates on this. Since I started talking about Jessie, I've gotten no less than 20 to 25 messages, whether it's, through Insta or direct email, or even Messenger, of people saying, hey, here's my experience with, Judge Worthington. Here's my experience with this DA. Here's my experience in, the judicial system in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Payne County. And what's been interesting about all these stories, I've kind of started to compile them together and to one thing so I can kind of analyze them. And a lot of these, not all, but a lot of them have the exact same players in every one of them. There's another case, for example, that Judge Worthington and I think Michael Culling, don't hold me to the last one, was on it. And basically, this was a guy, he was a teacher, got arrested for sexting a 13-year-old girl, was sentenced to 10 years. Not just that, he was also stalking her, trying to break into her house. This is a grown man, okay, an educator. And he gets sentenced to 10 years, which sounds great, right? He does 8 months and gets out.
Let me guess. Another white male, right? I bet you $1 million. A white male. This is what I'm talking about. This corrupt system, this racist system is built for the white man.
While he's out, he rapes a 16-year-old girl. The family gets an EPA, an emergency protective order against her, He violates it 11 times. Each time, Judge Worthington gives him a $500,000 fine. The girl doesn't feel safe. She wants to get out of that town as quickly as she possibly can as soon as she graduates and just be out of Stillwater. And this is another case. I'm actually probably going to be doing something today on it or tomorrow, but this is another case that, again, it's the exact same players, and there's a lot of them with it. And I was telling Representative Humphrey about that as well. This is not just a one-time singular incident when it comes to these predators.
Yeah. First of all, you talk about violating a protective order, okay? My understanding is something happened with Butler violating a protective order, and I think that would, speak to a lack of concern, a lack of consequences.
Correct.
You just mentioned it in this other case. What can you tell us about that?
So I believe, obviously, because the victims were minors, we'll leave their names out. But for one of the victims, he wouldn't stop harassing her, wouldn't stop calling her, wouldn't stop threatening her, despite the fact that the court told him not to do it. And he didn't even get, he got that charge, but nothing really happened for it. When you're at that point and you're facing the charges that he's facing, you have to take that very seriously, especially when there's strangulation charges on this. And even though there was 2 charges that happened, there were 3 strangulations on at least 2 of the victims. So one of those victims too had to have surgery. I don't know if you've seen the pictures on that, but had to have surgery to correct the damage that he did. And her medical physician said, I think that he said 30 seconds from death, but let's just say, he basically said that she is very near death on what he did. And this is also a guy who strangled one girl to the point of unconscious. Each strangulation was a point of unconsciousness. And one of those points.
And this is probably some type of sick fetish he gets off on. It's crazy, man. It's psychotic.
Once she woke back up, he had set his camera up because he wanted to film it. He did it again to the point of unconsciousness to this girl, caught it on camera, and actually when they searched his devices, they found that video. So it's not like hearsay, it's actually there. So when you have that and you have, young 16-year-old girls, who had to just go through this horrific ordeal, you look at pictures of Jessie Butler, he's an athlete, he's a big guy, it's an issue of he can easily overpower these people, using tactics of fear, coercion, things like that based on what we've heard. What are these girls supposed to do when you don't have a judicial system that's protecting them, when he blatantly disregards what the court has said? I think that speaks volumes, and I think it speaks even more when the courts do nothing about it.
And I want to highlight something. So one of these victims, talk about the victims, one of the victims submitted a victim impact statement to the court for the sentencing hearing. And according to KOCO, an Oklahoma outlet that reviewed the court paperwork, she wrote, I've had to explain bruises, explain silence, explain why I started isolating from people who love me. You didn't just strangle me with your hands, you strangled my voice, my joy, my ability to feel safe in my own body. The Daily Mail spoke with the mother of one of the girls that Butler attacked, calling her only Amber. She told them, it's appalling. I received similar punishments for breaking curfew when I was a teenager. It's a complete injustice to these girls and to future victims because, unfortunately, statistically, it won't end. Not only are you giving a slap in the face to those survivors, you are potentially putting other women at risk by not holding him accountable. Now, Justin, some people are...
And of course, he's going to do this again. He's definitely going to do this again. As long as you keep giving him an out, a slap on the wrist, he's going to continue to keep doing this. Let's be for real. And if when this happens again, that family definitely needs to sue. That judge needs to be thrown in jail herself. The prosecutor needs to be thrown in jail himself. It's like this happens in America all the time. But when it comes to a white boy, they don't want to ruin their lives saying that boys will be boys. But they ruin the girl's life for the rest of their life.
Calling Jessie Butler the new Brock Turner, because back in 2015, Turner was this 19-year-old star swimmer at Stanford University, sexually assaulted a woman while she was unconscious. He was convicted in 2016 of 3 charges of felony sexual assault, but at his sentencing, you had Santa Clara County Superior Court Judge Aaron Persky sentenced him to just 6 months in jail, followed by 3 months of probation. He was required to register as a sex offender for life. He ended up being released after just 3 months for good behavior. The judge in that case, by the way, ended up being recalled by local voters in 2018. The case influenced California's legislature to require prison terms for rapists whose victims are unconscious and changed the definition of what rape means to include digital penetration. So there was an outcome there. But I feel like that's a fair kind of comparison, no?
I think it's a great comparison because you have, rape by instrumentation, which is pretty much the same thing as, digital penetration. And I agree with you. And I think that with Brock Turner, who, by the way, I have been told, I've not researched on my own, that he has changed his name to Alan Turner so that I guess he can survive a little bit better. That was another travesty just because these girls, they have to live with this for the rest of their life, what happened to them. And these people get off scot-free. What kind of message does that send? And I think that when you look at somebody like Jessie Butler, I agree with you. And, you've covered enough cases. I've covered enough cases to know that people like this, they reoffend. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I know that there's a belief that we both know some of the same people And Gabby Petito's family, you know, they've really gone into domestic violence awareness and things like that, changing the laws. Well, Jim Schmidt, her stepdad, had told me that when somebody puts their hands around your neck, there is a 750% increased chance that they will kill you. So for Jessie Butler, somebody who has now comfortably strangled girls at least 3 times to the point of unconsciousness, filmed it. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen when he's now in college and all of this stuff is expunged from him? Which, by the way, I don't know if you were aware of that. You probably were. That when he turns 19, less than a year from now, all of this stuff is expunged. It's all completely gone. Nobody knows about it except for what it's found on the web. But you know, what's going to happen when he's at college and now he's got alcohol? He's got access to things like roofies, you know, inebriated states of some of these girls who are partying that should feel safe. What's going to happen when he's there and he does that and he takes somebody's life? Who's going to be held accountable then?
And look, that's the importance of reporting on this and keeping it in the public eye. So it's not put, you know, in the waste bin and no one knows what happened here. Something real happened here. And by the way, you and I cover these cases all the time. You know how difficult it is for survivors to come forward and explain what happened to them if there's not digital evidence to support it, if they don't have corroborating witness accounts, if there's not surveillance footage to, it's mostly based on their accounts. So not only being coming forward and going through the process to explain what happened and going through the legal process, and now this is the result. You know, Justin, that's why the work that you do is incredible. It is really incredible, and I can't highlight what you do enough. From what you've seen so far, how are these victims and their families doing? I mean, how are they responding to this? What was their reaction to all this? I explained it a little bit, but for the best that you can tell, I mean, how are they moving forward?
You know, it's interesting. So when you talk about the victims, I've spoken with Amber. I talk to her, you know, almost daily at this point. And what people have to remember too is that when something like this happens, it's not just the girl that's the victim. It affects the entire family, right? So now you have a mom and a dad, you know, advocating for their child, you know, and then people always say the same thing. And I say it even too. And I'll take a step back. Like, you know, I even told Amber, I was like, I don't know how you and your husband, you know, y'all are better people than me, because I don't think I could just let somebody walk. Like, I would be okay catching charges. And she was like, you know, we had that conversation, but we need to be on this side of some gates so that we can continue to help and advocate for her. But it affects the entire family. I think that despite all of this, what I'm learning is that I've not spoken to the girls, obviously. I'd rather speak to the parents because they're young. But from what I understand from the family, they are not letting this guy take their voice. They're not letting him have the power over him. And I think that that's a pretty incredible thing, because that's what a lot of this is about, right? It's about the ability to have power and control. And I feel too that with this story now getting more of the public attention, because originally it was being swept under the rug, that they also feel so much more supported, not only by their community, who's now more aware of this, but, you know, somebody said yesterday, made a comment on one of my videos, said, oh, I saw this on our morning news report in Oslo, Norway. And so
Really?
this has made,
Wow.
yeah, this made it all the way overseas. And I think that for these girls, they finally feel like, you know, even if the court's not giving him justice, he can't escape this. He can't run from this.
Yeah. And by the way, just so I know, have you heard?
Again, like I said, I want to say the outrage is because he assaulted 3 white girls. If it had been 3 black girls, this definitely got any coverage whatsoever. Nobody be talking about this right now. But let's continue.
Heard anything from him, his family, his side? Have they reached out to you at all or anything like that?
No, but I mean, but if they did, I would talk to them. You know, I'd let them have that opportunity. But no, they haven't. My guess is they're probably laying pretty low right now. What I have heard is that there's a group, a Facebook group, and I was sent a couple screenshots of it, where the family was reaching out to the administrator of that Facebook group, basically talking about how they're being threatened and how they're being harassed and things like that, and that basically that this was a big thorn in their side, is how I will word that. That's my words, not theirs. But you know, I'm not saying that people should harass or threaten people at all. I don't agree with that. But for it to be a thorn in their side, good. You know, I'm okay with that.
Well,
As we can see from the video, this is just another disgusting display of white male privilege in America. We all know why this monster didn't get the time that he deserved. He didn't get any time. And that's because most of these white males in any type of position of power, political or a judge, etc., they're the ones not to pretend perpetrating these crimes. That's why he didn't get any time. Let's be for real. If that was a little black boy that done this, they would have locked him up and threw away the key. That's why the judge need to be disbarred, locked in prison. The prosecution need to be thrown in prison and disbarred as well. It's ridiculous. Like, we got to speak upon these issues. We got to change this system. It's sick and disgusting. If this was your family member, what would you guys do? Be honest, what would you guys do? Please tell me in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe so I can throw more of these videos out to you guys. Y'all guys have a blessed day. Be safe out there, and peace.